Welcome to our first part of the interview with Her Excellency Miss Ambassador of South Africa. Thank you for being able to visit your residence. We got some questions for you, and the first question is regarded to South African security policy. And the first question I got for you is that South Africa is today the 9th largest country in Africa, with borders to 5 or 6 countries, including Lesotho. In regards to your geopolitical position, how is your relationship with your next door neighbors today?
When we talk about South African relations with its neighbors, we have a long history. During the apartheid system, there used to be what we call the frontline states, which border South Africa. And these are the countries that were very supportive to South African anti-apartheid struggle. And from then on, they have never reneged on that stance. They still are very good friends with us today. And I think today they are known as SADC. So, therefore, that also informs South African foreign policy, which is linked to our domestic policy. That we say, South Africa can never be better unless there's a better Africa and there's towards a better world. So whatever we need for South Africans, Africa needs. So we can't be seen as a flourishing country within the sea of poverty around us. So we still have very good friends. And that's why in many occasions, whenever there are issues, and I think currently we have got Mozambique, we have to assist there and there. Zimbabwe, we have to assist. We've got our own challenges, but we work together through the AU and SADC to be able to, especially SADC, because we're talking about our neighbors, SADC, to assist one another.
Has your geopolitical situation ever been safer than it is today?
We are very safe. We have friends around us. We don't have enemies. As I'm saying, we have friends around us. They are our neighbors, and we work together towards a better world for all of us.
Which one is your closest ally in your nearby region?
We don't have a favorite.
No.
We have neighbors and friends.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So there is a common thought that South Africa has an independent foreign policy compared to other neighboring states, with ties to both the West and the BRICS countries. Mm-hmm. How can you describe the main targets of South African foreign policy in today?
Well, South Africa's foreign policy, as I mentioned earlier on, it's linked to, it's Pan-Africanism. As we are saying, we want a better South Africa, a better Africa, and a better world. So whatever we are fighting for, and of course linked to our domestic policy, whatever we are fighting for, a better world for all our people, we want the world to be the same. And we also want peace and development, peace and security development. And that's why we are under the multilateral forum, either in the UN, SADC, or wherever we engage, we fight for peace in the world. A peaceful solution for all conflicts that we see. Because once we have peace, you can then have development that will be beneficial for everybody else. You can never even envisage to see development when there's conflict. And we are very concerned about the impact of these conflicts on women and children. We also want to see women being very active in conflict resolutions. Wherever there are conflict resolutions or negotiations, women should be part of that because they are even the most affected in the conflicts. So peace and security, development is the core to us.
I'm pleased to hear that, and it looks, based on your next door neighbors and your situation there, your geopolitical position has never been safer with regards to your security policy, which is probably a reason to your great foreign policy of establishing a bond to both the East and West.
Indeed.
So, as we all know, Nelson Mandela became in 1994 the first president of South Africa. What has been the biggest change in South African policy since he was elected in 1994?
Today South Africa is a democratic and free society. We are able to hold free and fair elections where everybody participates. And we've been consistent with that since 1994 till this year, until to date. Meanwhile, we still have inequalities, unemployment, and poverty is what we're striving to address through our democratic processes. There's free speech. You can criticize, but as long as it's constructive criticism and anybody can, there's free movement of people. But I think also what we could also learn from Nelson Mandela is that it pays to be a servant of the people. Work towards what is beneficial for the people. Be humble. Humility is very, very important. And that's what Nelson Mandela projected to us. A man of peace, a man who could be able to reconcile the pain that he had for 27 years. He was able to forgive and give us the country that we have today. It's human. You always have a grudge and say, no, I don't want this, but he taught us a lesson of forgiving and be able to focus on the most important thing, to build a prosperous and resourceful and democratic country. And we are working together to make it better.
How does his ideas live on today? What is his most essential idea, which is very prosperous in today's younger generation?
Well, as I mentioned earlier on, meanwhile we still have challenges, but Nelson Mandela, as I indicated earlier on, has instilled in us the issue of peace. And that's why everywhere else in multilateral fora, South Africa pushes for peace settlement, pushes for development of the country, pushes for neighborliness, so that we can live together. Because once we fight, we will focus on the fighting and neglect the basic things of where our children need to grow up with secured shelter, secured food, secured education, secured health, secured everything that they need, or secured and thriving economy. And if we don't build these things for our next generations, who is going to do it? It's working together to make it better for everyone.
Wonderful. And me and my fellow students, everyone knows about Nelson Mandela and know about his ideas. And it's not just a proudness of South Africa, but it's also a great symbol of Africa and of course of the world, of how we were able to forgive so many people. And which importance do you feel that Nelson Mandela have in not just South African world, but in today's world?
He's a world icon. We actually don't own him anymore. He's a world icon. And his symbol is peace. Everywhere else where we see conflict, people will be talking about they wish they had a Mandela to be able to navigate the conflict. But I think in every one of us, if we sit together with sober minds and bring an interest of the joint interest, not individual interest. If you put our interest together as a united interest for peace, we will see progress in the world. As long as we don't fight individual for individualistic interests, I think if we unite for a united, peaceful, democratic societies, we will then see prosperity that will follow. You're not going to be able to build, let's say, an industry in a ravaging war field. It's not possible. So you need to clear that and be able to build a foundation for a prosperous society.
is there examples of new countries that follows in the steps of Nelson Mandela today?
Well, I wouldn't pinpoint a particular one, but I think for what Mandela has stood for the world, everybody aspires to be. And I think each and every country that's going through a conflict, they want to see themselves there. And that's why countries like Norway and South Africa working together in cooperation to assist those countries to be able to reach where they want to be, to have a peaceful country.
Is there an example of one of these countries? Malawi is a country that is getting developed.
I think they are doing their best. Every country has got challenges, and every country has got dynamics that they've got to work with, which are domestic. And I think it is countries like Norway, for instance, or South Africa, or any other peace negotiator or mediator that they should be using their skills and knowledge to assist those countries to reach that. We will not have a shining star that will say this country indeed is doing 1, 2, 3, 4. They will have hurdles that they've got to cross through. And I think every country, like South Africa did, we had challenges, but we were able to get where we are today. And we're not saying we have solved everything. We still are struggling with, as I mentioned earlier on, still struggling with our 3 challenges of unemployment, poverty and inequality. But we are working together to try and remedy those.
And that's issues which almost every industrialized country is also have, and makes, of course, South Africa one of the many countries that struggles with unemployment.
Exactly. So you can also imagine that when South Africa is only 27 years young, so imagine the countries that have had liberations or independence much earlier, which are still struggling with those things. How much you expect of South Africa? Sometimes we feel South Africa there's just so much pressure on South Africa to do things quicker. How about those ones that even had this opportunity much earlier than South Africa? But we're doing our best with what we have, the resources that we have, with what we can. Things are not easy in the world today, but we're working together to try and make it better for our people, for a better world for everyone.
It's 100% understandable in that way. And as you mentioned, you're only 27 years young, and you are accomplished so much. You have a very very good economic growth compared to other African countries that has been independent since the 1950s or 1940s. Why did you accomplish economic growth so fast compared to other countries? What is your secret?
Well, I think let's go back. South Africa has always been a developed country, sort of more developed than other African countries, because during the apartheid system, the infrastructure was intact, financial institutions were intact, higher education institutions were intact, and I think what is most important, South Africa didn't go through a civil war like many of the African countries. We were blessed to be able to avert that, and thanks to Nelson Mandela again, that we're able to negotiate. And by the way, we didn't have anybody we negotiate amongst ourselves to reach a consensus to have a democratic South Africa that we have today. Because we didn't have any infrastructure destroyed through a civil war, we're able to then rebuild from what we had. And I think because of our developed infrastructure and finance, higher education and all other sectors, mining, name it, we had the opportunity that we still had the intellect and expertise that was still there to be able to build from what we have. It was quite advanced compared to other countries. It's not that we were able to build it that quick. That's the advantage we had.
Which to the younger generation that is looking at this, which sector area are you in South Africa the most proud of?
The most?
Proud of? where are you the best? Where is South Africa on its best?
Well, I can mention quite a number. I mean, our financial institutions are one of the best in the world. Our higher education institutions are one of the best. Our health institutions is one of the best. We have lot. I mean, South Africa is one of the first countries in the world that had a heart transplant. So, and there's lots of others. So we've got mining industry. We've got we assemble a lot of automobiles. You know, your BMW 3 Series, we assemble that for the world, distribution of the world. We assemble Mercedes-Benz. I think there's many other automobiles that are being assembled. I think we just need to move to a point where we produce our own car. I think we need to do it. Hopefully that will come soon. Yeah.
So if there's one thing South African and younger South Africans should be proud of with your country?
There are many. I can't pinpoint any of them. I think they should be proud that they are growing into a free and democratic South Africa, which has got so many possibilities for them to take advantage of. That's what they need. The world is open for them to be able to do whatever, to fulfill their dreams. That's what they should be proud of. And I think being an active citizen, to say, with what I'm given, what is it that I can contribute to building this beautiful country?
Yeah, it's really something you say is relevant for South Africans, but it's also relevant for other people,
Yes.
Which is looking from Norwegian eyes,
Indeed.
but also English-speaking people
Indeed.
around the world that are watching this interview. So even though the apartheid regime and colonization before has taken place in South Africa, you have managed to rebuild. Which effects does apartheid have in your today's Africa?
What effects that apartheid have? I think, as I mentioned earlier on, is because apartheid has taught us. We learned such terrible experiences. We had terrible experience of apartheid, but we came out of it to learn to accommodate and accept and how to reconcile with one another and accept and I'm looking for the word, be able to recognize our differences and acknowledge that we are different. And even though different, we should be united as one country. So we talk about being united in our diversity. Different cultures, different way of doing things, but I recognize that you are different, I'm different, but the common thing is that we're in the same country, same human beings. And we must have a common goal to make this country better for our next generations.
Have apartheid in some way been positive for South Africa?
Apartheid can never be positive. Never. Not only in South Africa, anywhere else can never be positive. And the world should never ever promote it anywhere else. We should work towards not seeing apartheid ever in this world.
Do you see it anywhere in today's world, or?
Well, there are countries that are still striving to make a better world. I think it's a known fact that the people of Palestine are still struggling. We want to see them having a better world like everybody else. They deserve to have that freedom. They deserve to have their own country where they can live in prosperity like everybody else. I think we wish prosperity, freedom, democracy for everyone in the world.
Do you think Palestine can go so strengthened out of a situation like apartheid, which are a part of now, as you did in 1994?
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, because with so many new technologic innovations and one of the most growing economies in Africa, you have for sure made it a good way out of the apartheid regime, and that's why it may be possible for other countries to see a way like South Africa did as well.
Yeah, you see, but the South African situation was not only about the technology or anything else. It was a very complex situation, South Africa, and it took not only the masses within the country, the people of South Africa, especially the most deprived and oppressed people of South Africa. It took the international community in support. People of Norway, for instance, who supported us from way back to win this war against apartheid. It took, of course, we also had our military wing. It took us many other areas of our struggle that helped us to be where we are. And of course the negotiations that we held amicably amongst ourselves to recognize that there's need for peace so that we can be able to live in a prosperous country for the benefit of our generations, even for ourselves, as we're still living today. And we're happy. And it is very also heartwarming to realize that other countries are seeing this as a possible or as a way to be able to resolve issues. There's many countries that learned from us. We're very appreciative of that, and appreciative of the role that Norway also played in supporting us.
We're truly appreciating that, and we can see that economical sanctions has often been a bad thing because it doesn't really help often the people of countries. It helps, or it makes it even worse for the people of countries. But in South Africa, it's been the quite opposite. And for students that study this, they're very interested to know why is it South Africa where economic sanctions has really improved the situation compared to other countries?
Economic sanctions did not necessarily improve. I remember I was still a student in the US where we used to do campaigns and picketing in front of South African embassy then, because we were fighting against apartheid, where we were, even at our respective universities, would call on meetings and call on businesses to divest disinvestments in South Africa. And the argument was, if you do this, it's not going to, disinvestments from South Africa are going to hurt the people. And our response to that was that we have been hurt for so many years, and we don't mind hurting a little bit longer if we know that the end is going to benefit us all. Disinvestment is just one of the weapons that we had to use to be able to gain our freedom, and it worked. Because without that power, if you give the enemy power to buy weapons, to be strong against the poor, what are you saying? But if you deprive them of that power, the chances are more that we can be able to win the war.
That was the first part of this interview with Her Excellency, Miss Ambassador of South Africa. We'll be back next week.
Next week. Thank you.